Hi, this video is recorded for the release of version 1.2.3 of Flight Plan Visualizer. This is the second video recorded for this release. Another separate video have been recorded showcasing the new logbook and the employment feature added in version 1.2.3. And in the description below you find a link to that video. This video will describe what else have changed in this version. Version 1.2.3 have been a long way in the making, and it's partly been caused by the time I have had to put into this issue, and also it's because a lot of the features added in this version is regarding this new logbook and employment feature. The libraries used by this software have been updated in this version, and it have been changed to target the .NET Framework version 4.81. So if not already installed on your system, you need to install the .NET Framework version 4.81. As usual, I will not go through everything, but in the help menu, in the about box, I list all the things that have been changed in each version. So looking in this history, you can see everything that have been changed and altered and fixed in this version. First, I want to show some changes made to some of the tabs sections of this program that have been here for a long time, that have had some small changes in order to implement this new logbook feature. For example, if we look at the browser for the aircraft types, where you can search and see all the types included in the database for this program. You now have a column showing whether or not you are type rated for that aircraft, what the required type rate score is, and how many hours of flight time you have logged in that aircraft. For example, this one showing both a T and a S means you're type rated for this aircraft, and there exists a substitute simulator aircraft for this aircraft type. It's all explained in the other video I mentioned. You can see here the required type rate score you need in order to type rate for this aircraft, and up here you can see your actually type rate score, and here you can see the amount of hours I have logged of flights in this aircraft for this logbook. In the same way, when you open the airport details window, airport info, you now, for the airports you have flown into and out to, you now have this tab called logged flights. Choosing this, you can see the number of inbound and outbound flights for this aircraft, and double clicking one of them you see the log entry added to the logbook for this flight. A thing I forgot to mention in the other video recorded, when you create a log entry, it will set this time where it guess you want to leave the gate, and this time is based on the actual time on your computer. But to this time, first of all, here in settings, you now have this field, simulator pre-flight time, and the idea here is you set the time you expect it will take you to do all your paperwork, set up whatever you need to set up of programs you're using beside Flight Simulator, how long time you start the Flight Simulator, and so on. So perhaps you will set aside 20 minutes to get all your paperwork in order. And also beside this beside this time, you can per aircraft, you can enter a pre-flight time down here. And the meaning with this value is you set up the time it will take you to when you are in this aircraft at the gates, when you need to do your checks, you need to start up, you need to push back. So that time is added as well as the other time. So when you create this flight, they'll add those two values and say, okay, if one is 20 minutes and the other is 15 minutes, it will add 25 minutes to the actual time and say, okay, we expect you to leave the gates within 35 minutes. Of course, when you create your flights, you can change this time up here, but it's just adding those two as a suggested time for leaving the gate. Also explained in the other video, in here in user aircraft, this tab was called owned aircraft in previous version, because these are the simulator aircraft you own in your simulator. So these are the simulator aircraft that's available for you to use. In the other video I show how you create those, or otherwise here in the these previous recorded tutorials videos and release videos for version 1.17, those user aircraft is described in this video. Also regarding these user aircrafts, if you want to, you can register which repaints liveries you have available for that aircraft, and now in this version you can also add the URL. For example, if you have a library that's not installed, you perhaps not even downloaded, you just put in here, okay, if I need it, I know I can download from this URL. You can also put the path on your computer where you have it installed. It's just, it's not used for anything, it's just a reminder field. If you want to use it, you now have it. For many versions you have been able to tell the program which aircraft you consider your favorite aircraft. And so far it have been a manual process. You simply put a check mark to those you regard as your favorite aircraft. And there might be several reasons for you wanting to do so. For example, if I look the airport info for this airport and I choose runways, you see the runways, and when you choose a runway you will see a list of all the aircraft that are capable of using this runway based on the database specifying the required runway length for each aircraft. And by default it shows you all aircraft. But you can say, okay, I don't care about a lot of these aircraft. I only want to see my favorite aircraft. Those I have marked as my favorite that can land here. The same goes for the gates. When you select the gates, you can see here all the aircraft types that can park at this gate, based on the required radius of that aircraft and the size of the gate. And in this version, in all many previous versions, you could also select to see only my favorite aircraft that can park at this gate. And last but not least, performing your leg search. You could, for example, when you reset, by default all aircraft are selected. So choosing none, it deselects everything. And you can say add favorites, so now only your favorite aircraft are checked. But as I said, in all previous versions you had to manually set up which aircraft types were favorites. In this version of the program, where I think most users, if they want to use the new logbook feature, they will add the simulator aircraft, and here for your simulator aircraft you can also specify which simulator aircraft are your favorites. So what I can do in this version, in settings, you can now choose to automatic generate your favorite aircraft selection based on those simulator aircraft you have marked as your favorite. And simulator aircraft can also substitute other aircraft types. It's explained in the other video recorded for version 1.2.3 regarding the logbook and employment feature. Those substitute aircraft can also be added or included in your favorites. So when I enable this feature, now when I go in here, we are told we cannot change anything as long as this feature is included, because now these aircraft are automatic selected as favorite. Those you have marked as favorites within your simulator aircraft are now marked. For example, I have marked this simulator aircraft for the PMG 737-700 as a favorite, so hence it's also marked as a favorite here. Some small changes have also been added to the airline usage report. For example, if you select an airline, we have this show usage report. And based on the bundle flight plans that have flights utilizing this airline either as operator or carrier, it generates this report. And for example, this line is a new line added. If it both had freight aircraft and passenger aircraft, you could see a summarize of it here. And a few other small changes to this report. I've done some changes to the various browsers. I don't know if you ran into the issue. I have run into it myself a few times, and it's actually an old issue that I have not until now been able to fix. If I write the ICAO code very quickly and press enter, in previous version there was a big chance it would choose another airport than the one you were looking for. Here I wrote the ICAO code for Aalborg, Denmark very quickly and pressed enter. And now it will actually select the correct airport instead of selecting a wrong one. And that issue was both when you search for airports, airlines, and aircraft types. And finally, I was able to figure out what went wrong and fix it in this version. So if you ran into that issue in previous version, it's fixed now. In previous version, you had to enter the ICAO code, then wait until it actually showed the correct content of the window and then press enter. But now in this version, you can press enter quickly. Also, when you search for airlines, I have now fixed the priority. The way it works, if I enter AL, it will more or less, I entered EL this time. In this case, there is an ICAO code for EL. So that's why this one is selected as the list is filtered. It only lists airlines with EL in the name or in the ICAO code or in the IATA code. But in this case, there was an IATA code of EL, and that's why it highlights this one as it thinks that's the one you want to choose. The ICAO code will have priorities. For example, this one, RSA. So if I search for RSA, that is the one that will select, even though RSA can be included in many of the other fields. In this version, it kept this priority, but it will also prioritize airlines that are actually active, that have a commence day and not a cease day, and so on. So, and the reason for that is ICAO codes get reused. When I might want to keep the data for the old airline, even though it have been defunct. For example, this one, it ceased operating in 2008. I kept it in the database, but this, in theory, this ICAO code could be reused for another airline. For example, if I search for AEC, this ICAO code have been utilized previous for this airline, but now it's in use for this one. And the search will pick this one that's active now. It will prioritize this one. So now there is a bigger chance it will select the correct airline when you do a search. So those were the changes to these search browsers in this version. I've added some additional features, search fields to the leg search feature. When you perform the leg search, I've made some visual changes up here in order to add these two lines that are new in this version. And the reason for that is the airports in Microsoft Flight Simulator are often missing data or have the wrong data. For example, there are many airports that don't even have gates. They only have the runways but no gates. Many of the gates are small. You can have airports where there is a lot of gates with only a 7 meter diameter of the gates, where that the real life airport have more and bigger gates. So here you can simply say that the aircraft must fit the gate, And it will, for example, if I search for all flights for an Airbus A318, and if I click this one, it will filter out all the airports that have gates that are not large enough to have this aircraft. And you can also specify instead a fixed minimum gate size in meters. Normally I would use this one. So I only want to see flights that have gates that's at least one gate that's large enough to fit their aircraft in question. In order to be not too political, but the current state in the world, you might want to exclude flights into and out of specific countries. I've added these two new features in this one. You can either, or you can actually both. You can both exclude by countries, where you can use both the 2-letter and the 3-letter ISO country code that's listed here. And also you can exclude airports, where you can enter the ICAO codes of the airports you want to exclude. For example, with the current situation, I might want to avoid flight into Russia and Ukraine. So I simply enter the 3-letter ICAO code for those two countries and simply click close. You now see this asterisk telling you that there are countries being excluded, and you can see them here. And if you enter something wrong, when you close the window, you'll simply be told something was wrong. It was not a correct ISO 2 or 3 code. And when you go in again, it's simply removed. The 3-letter ICAO code for Denmark is DNK, but you can, as I said, you can also use the 2-letter code. And when you do so, it will automatically be changed to the 3-letter code. But this is a quick way to simply avoid these countries. If you always want to exclude those countries, what you can use is you can save your own reset templates. When you press and hold Shift and press reset, it will always be reset to the factory reset. This is how I've defined the factory reset to be, but you can now make your own reset. This is not a new feature, but I think many are not aware of it, so I want to explain it here. Personally, I want to exclude all aircraft, because it makes it easy for me. Typical, I want to use this feature only to include 1 or 2 specific aircraft instead of using all. So I want my reset to have non-aircraft selected, and if I always want to avoid Russia and Ukraine, I can enter them here. Now I can save this as my reset. So if I select them all here and I deselect something here, when I press reset, it will select my personal reset I just defined, where no aircraft are selected and Russia and Ukraine are excluded. If I press and hold Shift, I will have the factory reset, where no countries are excluded and all aircraft are included. So these fields are new in this version, these few criteria fields. Let's perform a search where we include all flights using the ATR. So I simply press reset to have my defaults. I search for the ATRs, and I include them all, and perform the search and say OK. And as you can see, there is a lot of flights utilizing this aircraft. For example, if I highlight this route, it was the wrong menu here. If I choose this one, view route info, I can see all the airlines and flights and so on utilizing this route, and you can see it's between these two airports, but it's in both directions. And if I double click one, I will see this Up here I have info for this specific flight, and down here you have the entire schedule for that aircraft. So first it will fly this flight, and then next this one, and so on. And this is not new, but what you can do in this version is now you can transfer data to SimBrief. If I click and select my aircraft for which I'm type rated, I can say I want to fly this either as a chartered, a free flight, or a training flight. If you're type rated for that aircraft, you can fly it as a chartered flight or a free flight. If you're not type rated, you can only fly it as a training flight. And I can simply transfer these data from this flight to SimBrief. I simply click here, and it's explained in the other video recorded, but here is the settings, how we want SimBrief to do its dispatch, and we choose also what we want not to send to SimBrief, because the data we are not sending to SimBrief, SimBrief will calculate. For example, instead of sending the cruise altitude of this flight, if I suppress it, it means I'll not send it to SimBrief, hence SimBrief will calculate the cruise altitude to use instead. So you simply click OK. And this will launch your browser and transfer the data to SimBrief, and you can simply click Generate Flight, and then have SimBrief do its work, and you can use the data. You can also, if you have a logbook, you can choose to fly this flight. And what it will do is it will generate a log entry where you can specify various things, also explained in the other video, but here you can also, in the exact same way, you can send the data to SimBrief. Here we let SimBrief generate the flights. And once generated, we can import the data from SimBrief. For example, here, this is a default cruise altitude. When we import it, I guess it will be changed. Also, I'm guessing SimBrief will add an alternate, so we simply click OK. And we see here, as I predicted, the cruise altitude was changed. SimBrief added an alternate, and if we look here at the route info, here we can see the route SimBrief suggested to use: cost index, climb profile, cruise profile, and descent profile are all updated from the data from SimBrief. The distance of the actual flight plan from SimBrief and the flight time calculated by SimBrief have also been updated. And in this tab you see you can see the flight plan for this flight. And again, the SimBrief dispatch have been generated, so you can populate whatever program you're using that need those SimBrief data. In each version, I specify, it's a manual job, but I specify which flight plans have become defunct because there's come a new version of it. And also I specify sorry, these are the defunct because the airline have stopped working for some reason or the other. And here you have the obsolete flight plan. That's because there is a new version of them. This is a manual task. This is a list I build every time. As I'm importing flight plans, I note into one of the database supplied with this program which flight plans have become obsolete and so on. And the program uses that. For example, I have a lot of flight plans here in my commercial folder. It's an active folder, so it tries to read these. And since I have deselected leave defunct and leave obsolete, if one of these was obsolete based on the data I have in this database, it will automatically move those flight plans into the disabled folder. The disabled folder cannot be enabled. It means these flight plans will not be loaded into your system, and you can mark them all and click down here to delete them. I want to keep all my old flight plans. So what I've done actually on my system is I manually created a folder called defunct and one called obsolete. So all of these obsolete flight plans I have moved to my obsolete folder instead of deleting them. But by the program automatic putting them here into the disabled folder means if they're obsolete, they'll not be used by the program by default. You can force them to be used anyway. I have this folder called Keep Active. And what I have done here is I have enabled this folder, but I say leave the defunct. And I can also say leave the obsolete. So all those obsolete and defunct flight plans, if I move them into this folder, they will stay in here and they'll actually be active. So they will be loaded anyway. And that's the reason I kept some of them. If I want for some reason to fly one of the old ones, I can do so. But as I said, this database is manually maintained. In this version, I added a new one. Detect obsolete flight plans. And it's not based on a database. It will simply look and try to determine if there are multiple seasons for the same flight plans. So for example, if I have a Scandinavian for summer 2021 and there was a new one called winter 223, 224, it will tell me that there was an old one. So these were the things I wanted to show in this update. As I said, in the help menu, in the about box, you will see a full list of changes and things that was fixed in this program. For example, I found some issues, rare case issues with ICAO codes, metadata not being decoded correctly. And I saw a calculation of flight time that was not correct, also fixed. And also there was a lot of changes to the databases, more data added, some data corrected and so on, but it's listed in the history list. Thank you.